Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Nigeria's federal capital city, Abuja. And good morning to everyone who is following us online. I would love to apologize that we're not able to bring you Talking Tech last week. It was due to circumstances beyond my control. Welcome to Talking Tech, your finest tech program on radio in the federal capital city, Abuja. And we're coming to you live from Vision FM 92.1, your community friendly radio. On this show, we discuss everything technology, from how technology has continuously dictated the pace of human civilization to how it has enthroned nations who have embraced it as world powers. We discuss new and emerging technologies and how these technologies will shape our societies, how they will shape businesses, and how they will also dictate governments across the globe. We've always brought to expert views from and expert and professional opinions from tech bros. We've always had Texas in the studio who always give us professional analysis. We've had tech CEOs, and we've brought you various exciting updates from indigenous tech companies. On today's episode of the program, we will be discussing something that is affecting us all at this point. At this point in time, we'll be discussing the role that technology played in the just concluded 2023 national elections, the presidential elections, and the National Assembly elections, basically. Don't forget, I'm your host, Ifan Ize, the tech guy. You can follow me on social media. You can follow me on Facebook. On Facebook, it's you can find me at the Tech Guy. It's spelled DEETECHGUY. And on Instagram, you can find me at D_Tech_Guy. That's spelled DEE_TECH_GUY. I have my co-host with me in the studio today, Ikenna Uche. I would allow him to introduce himself.
Hello, good morning Abuja, good morning Ifeanyi. Thanks for having me. My name is Ikenna Uche. I'm a business technologist from Tech Media Maven. We're focused on providing tech and media solutions to businesses and individuals. Once again, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you very much, Ikenna. We'll go on a very short break, and when we return, we will go straight into our conversation for the day.
I need to change the seat.
So you want to remove from empty now?
I need to change the seat. Because the seat is not supposed to be making noise.
Let's forward to
I need to change it to that one.
Which other one?
A bit long because the time is
yeah, time is good.
Will you be comfortable on this one?
I think so.
The seat is not supposed to make noise.
It's making noise back and it's affecting the program.
It's not supposed to.
Let's not do that way.
When you
To look like the
Do you want this?
What side?
Right, open it.
Clean back.
Welcome back. You're still on Talking Tech with Ifan Ize, the tech guy. There are still mixed feelings from last Saturday's presidential and national election and National Assembly elections that were held across the country. And if you ask some people feel that the elections were not credible, while a lot of people feel the elections were credible. But whatever your position is, there's definitely a big question on a very big question on almost everybody's mind, and that question would be, why do we still have some of the election challenges that we've always had in the past, even after over 105 billion naira was spent on procuring accreditation devices. That's talking about the BVAs machine. I got this data from INEC. Now, do not even get me started on how much was spent on the servers, and then talking about the network infrastructures that were procured for these elections. But when you study, when you take a look at, you study the problem that these technologies are meant to solve, you will get to understand that these technologies, to an extent, have the capacity to actually eliminate doubt on the outcome of elections in this country. No matter how basic these technologies are, they actually have the capacity to eliminate doubts on the outcome of elections in this country. But despite the deployment of technology in last Saturday's elections, there's still a lot of doubts on the credibility of Saturday's elections, and you can see this in what's happening in the coalition center, in National Coalition Center. And for obvious reasons, doubts are also being casted on every technology that was used on Saturday, from the BVAS machine to the availability of network, for transmission of results to the IREF, to the IREF platform, down to the servers that were used. The work that I and Iken have here today is to analyze these technologies. Now, we'll also see how these technologies were used on Saturday. We'll look at their flaws and how how these technologies can be improved. Iken, are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
It's a very sensitive conversation, but it's a conversation that's very important at this time because a lot of people do not understand. There are a lot of questions that have been left unanswered, especially when it comes to the technologies that were deployed on Saturday.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here, basically.
Yeah.
So now, how does the INEC technology work? The entire technology from the BVAS and down to when this data, right from when this data is being captured from by the BVAS down to the servers and the IREF.
Okay, so let's use a top-down approach. Let's start from the known to the unknown. Generally, why do we use technology? We use technology for two things. One, either to solve problems, or two, to improve existing solutions.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in the case of INEC and our elections, what was the problem? In the past, we have had issues with overvoting. One, we have had issues with human interference during coalition. Two. So, technology was introduced as a way to help curb these challenges.
Yeah.
And now, let's go to what INEC has on ground. In the past election, one of the technologies they introduced was the use of card readers, if you remember. Now, they have gone a step further in this election by introducing what we now know as the BVAs.
Yes.
So what does the BVAS do? The BVAS is meant to help with the accreditation of voters primarily. Now, how does it work? As a polling unit officer, you're the only one approved, more or less.
As a presiding officer.
As a presiding officer, you're the only one approved to accreditate voters. So what INEC does is they give you a special login to their own portal that is used for the accreditation, which only you has access to. And after you log in, the login is not just the username and password. It also involves facial recognition, so that even if you share that password with someone, once it comes to the point of facial recognition, the system will not recognize the other person's face because that's not what's stored on the database.
Yeah.
Going further, okay, let's say you have successfully been authorized to use the app.
That's the presiding officer now.
As the presiding officer, you open the app. Each polling unit has a pre-downloaded database of all the accredited voters for that particular polling unit. And all that you're supposed to do with the machine is verify how many of these accredited voters are present in my polling unit. So it's more like a class attendance. I already have a list of all my students. Now I want to know how many people are in class and how many people are not in class.
In class, of course.
Good. So that's for the accreditation purpose. And let's say you've successfully done that part and you have known how many people are there and how many people are not there. You have told the rest, please, this is not your polling unit. Go and find your polling unit. You have solved the issue of overvoting just by that simple technology. Now, what's the next phase? The voting proper. You go ahead, you cast your votes. Let's assume everything goes smoothly, and the end of the day, what's the next step? You collate the results of the votes. You count the numbers. You finish counting the numbers, you get your figures right. Now there's a form where you're to fill in whatever are the recorded figures for the respective parties.
Yeah.
After that, what's next? That's another very important part of the issue. So what INEC designed from their own platform was so that we promote transparency. There's an option of digital proof so that the citizens can get to see what actually happened in the polling units. So what they do is now you're to access in a different part of the portal where you capture the digital proof of what transpired, the results that transpired through the voting, and upload it to the INEC service, both for the INEC officials and the general public to
yes.
have access to. Now, to access this part, there's a separate unique login details that is different from the original one
That you
which
use for
you
accreditation.
used for accreditation at the beginning. So this is also going to be given to you by your senior supervisors, which on theory, the polling officers,
The presiding officers are supposed to
presiding
have those
officers are supposed
login
to
details.
have these details. Yeah. So after this, now the uploading process has two options. The assumption is that where you are, there is network. So with network, it automatically synchronizes onto the server. But in the
That's the election result.
the election
after
results,
taking
after
pictures of them.
taking pictures, you have to upload it. So with this upload process now has to do with network,
yes.
whether mobile network, Wi-Fi network. As far as there's internet connection, that's the basic requirement for that. But they also made provision in the event, worst case scenario, you're struggling with internet connections. Now there's a part where you can actually temporarily save this information pending when you're in an environment
Where there's
better internet connectivity.
I think it's also important for us to mention that these BVAS machines have about 4 network channels.
Yes, 4 network channels. So it's to eliminate the over dependence on one particular network service provider so that it improves the efficiency of the process generally. So I feel these are a brief overview of the technology that was used in the INEC elections.
So basically, let's say for instance, there's a primary network channel. Let's say for instance, there's no network on that primary network channel. Then you have the opportunity to switch to the other, I think about 2 or 3 network channels.
Yeah.
So it's almost like at every point in time you should have network. But in the case where the 4 network channels do not have the availability of network,
then you resort to the
offline transmission. And then one key thing we also have to take cognizance of is the fact that when you look at the INEC rule on transmission, INEC, I think we looked at some of INEC's materials. It was stated that at the polling units, these results were supposed to be transmitted at the polling unit by the presiding officers.
So you remember when I made reference to the 2 problems, and the first problem was overvoting.
Yeah.
The second problem was to reduce the level of human interference in the coalition process.
Yes.
So that was the wisdom behind this guideline, that these results be transmitted at the polling unit.
Yes.
So that even if there are malicious intentions hovering around the corner, it curtails that particular act just by uploading it at those polling units.
Yes.
So that's the wisdom in that guideline, and I feel it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a very good one, because from the polling unit to the coalition center, anything could have happened.
Anything could happen.
Anything can basically happen. So now we understand annex technology, how it works, and then we also understand one ground rule.
Yes.
The results are meant to be transmitted at the polling unit. And when you look at the
sorry, just to point in, when we talk about transmission doesn't completely say online transmission.
Yes.
Whether online or offline.
Yes.
These results just have to be transmitted at that polling. It improves the trust that the people should have in the process, because the idea is they are going to also be polling party observers.
Yes.
From the respective parties. Let them see that in their front you actually transmitted
these
results.
And I think we saw this in some of these season elections, like the Osun State election.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it happen like that. But now let's now discuss what went wrong.
Okay, I'll allow you to take the floor.
So when you now look at what went wrong on Saturday's election, for me, one key thing that went wrong was the fact that a lot of these results were not transmitted at the polling units.
Which is, that's actually very accurate. And
because my own polling unit, the results were not transmitted. The results were not transmitted at the polling units.
So that goes against the guideline.
For me, it goes against the guideline, because the results we were told to our results were taken to the collation center.
Okay.
for transmission.
So what was the reason given behind why the result
Now,
had to be different?
now that takes me to the second thing that went wrong.
Okay.
Our presiding officer informed us that he does not have the password to transmit results. And for me, initially we doubted it. We doubted that as a presiding officer you had, because then a lot of people did not understand how the BVAS works.
Okay.
People were asking him, you had the password to do accreditation.
So they were suspecting him for
Yes, that he had the password, but
they didn't know it was two different.
It was two different
credentials.
login credentials. But now it was later on at about this was happening like the wee hours of the morning, 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m. It was later on people now got to understand that these guys might not be lying. We called. He said his SPO had the login details. We called the SPO. The SPO
Who is
stopped
an
taking out.
SPO?
That's his supervisor, basically.
Okay.
Supervising senior presiding officer, basically. We had to take our results to the collation center.
Okay.
And it was at the collation center where we were told that this result will be transmitted, maybe online or offline. When we got to the collation center about 3 a.m., there was nobody to transmit results. And I saw a whole lot of results from various polling units just lying down on the ground. So for me, I think the key problem that was supposed to be solved by the BVAS machine on Saturday was not solved. Because the main thing was for the BVAS machine to capture and transmit results at the polling unit to avoid manipulations. But as long as these results were not captured and transmitted at the polling unit, then it also gives room for manipulations and doubt. So for me, those are key things that went wrong. The fact that the collation officers did not have the passwords, the login details for transmission, and also the fact that results were not transmitted at the polling unit. Now,
is this in any way connected to the press release from INEC explaining?
So you now basically look at the fact that some of these guys, at some point, they said they had the login details, but at some point they said their login details were no longer working.
Okay.
So what could have happened? These are questions that have been left unanswered.
So, from a technical point, the possible things that could happen in that scenario, and I'm not saying this is what happened.
Yes.
I'm saying when you're confronted with these challenges, some of the things that come to mind is, one, either the person in question was fed with the wrong credentials.
Yes.
Which is possible, because if I want to access my Facebook account, for instance, no matter how much it's me, if I put the wrong email and password, Facebook is just not going to open that
account. Of course. And I think these credentials were somehow typed, and it could be typographical errors.
Yeah, so it could be typographical errors. We don't know where it's coming from. There could also be a system failure.
Yes.
That's also another option. It could also be the fact that depending on the level of control that whoever it's the admin has to it, some of these credentials could be active at certain times
and then deactivated at certain times.
These are possible scenarios.
Of course.
Yes. So, and this is just trying to analyze it from a technical perspective. We don't know for sure what would have happened in those situations, but these are possible challenges that.
And for me, another thing that went wrong, especially from when you look at INEC side of things, I think there was a circular that INEC released yesterday. There's a point I want our listeners to hear. So if you could help us read that part.
Okay, so there's a particular paragraph, and it reads: "The problem is totally due to technical hitches related to scaling up the IREV from a platform for managing off-season state elections to one for managing nationwide general elections. It is indeed not unusual for glitches to occur and be corrected in such situations." So essentially what I understand from this is that what they used, or the resources they used for these elections, were more suited for state elections
Elections, yeah.
than the skill
For individual state
for
elections.
individuals. Well, than
That's
the
off-season
skill
elections.
which they were operating at the present moment.
And
Oh, what do you make of that?
for me, what I make of it as a technical person, especially as a network engineer, is the fact that these servers are this a lot of the IREV I believe is works on a cloud service.
Yeah, the IRF is tied to cloud computing.
It's tied to cloud computing.
Mm.
And when you look at a lot of these social media platforms like Facebook, even look at our local e-commerce platform, you look at our e-commerce platforms like Jumia, they all use cloud services.
Yeah.
And
one of the selling points of cloud services is the ease of scaling up or scaling down.
So when there's high traffic,
it automatically scales up.
Your server space automatically scales up. And when the traffic is low, it scales down.
Yeah.
What it does for you is when it scales down, you're paying less at that point in time. And when it scales up, you're paying more.
For those that don't understand, what we're referring to is the computing power.
Yes, the computing space basically and the computing power. Now, for me, I think for INEC to say that this was the challenge, that they did not plan, they did not envisage this much traffic, and that a lot of they did not envisage that this election would need this much computing power. Then what happened to a load balancer? Because basically what a load balancer does is when there is much traffic and when much computing power is needed, it automatically scales it up. And then when you need less computing power and when you need less computing space, it scales it down for you. So what happened to that?
Well,
now I think we're running out of time. Let's look at the flaws of the BVAs. Some of the flaws of the BVAs.
Okay, so from my own perspective, one of the flaws I observed, because there has been, I'm making reference now to a particular post that has been trending on social media where
it's not just a post. I think we
several posts actually.
Several posts, and we verified on INEC
IREF. In place of a result, a woman's face was uploaded.
Yes.
I think this was somewhere in Ekiti.
Ado Ekiti,
to be more precise. You could investigate it and confirm what we are referring to. So it just shows you one of the clear limitations of the system.
So what we're trying to say is, at that point where you're supposed to take a snapshot of the results and transmit to the IREF platform, what they did was they took a picture of somebody's face, a fine girl's face, and then transmitted it as the presidential result.
As a result. So now it clearly shows you that something is inconsistent with that polling unit. You don't even know whether you should trust the result that is coming out of the polling unit.
And definitely that did not happen. That did not happen at the polling unit.
Yes. So, and we see issues too where we're seeing some results where the date and time doesn't match with the particular election in question. And there are several challenges. But there are several loopholes to this, and
then there are results that were transmitted that were not clear.
Yeah. So it's a system that, on theory, is good and has so much benefits, but still has a lot of work to be done on it. From my own perspective.
And when you look at it, we were discussing why transmit pictures, why not transmit figures?
Why can't you transmit both
pictures and figures? Because you transmit pictures,
subject to my interpretation of the handwriting.
Of course, because if I might write 3 and you might interpret my 3 as 8. So if we're transmitting pictures, it means it gives somebody work to actually collate at some point.
Yeah. So the question is, okay, while pictures are transmitted, who collates those results at the back end?
At the back end. But if you give room for numbers to be transmitted, and then those pictures serves as a
backup or digital proof.
As digital proof for those numbers.
Yeah. It's a tidier arrangement. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for me, like you said, for me, it's a tidier arrangement. So that's one of the flaws of the BVAs that makes me think it should be looked at. But Ikenna, in 1 minute, what possible recommendations do you have?
Okay, so I'll go back to the first thing I started with, which was one of the problems we are trying to solve is to reduce the interference of people in this process. Now, in the Electoral Act, the 2022 Electoral Act, Section 41, subsection 1 states The commission shall provide suitable boxes, electronic voting machine, or any other voting device for the conduct of elections. What does that mean? It means even the process of elections doesn't necessarily have to be as manual as it is today. We could actually use digital electronic voting
So
machines.
yes, people can actually vote electronically.
Yes, and it removes that process of the machine counts the votes, the machine collates it, the machine
Does everything.
and the human interference is drastically reduced, which means we could have more transparent results.
All right, thank you very much, Ikenna. I think that's all we can take on Talking Tech. Today's episode is saying that technology is important in elections, and for INEC to introduce technology means they know the importance, and we applaud them for introducing technology. But I feel that this technology and the use of this technology has to be improved, in further elections.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Ikenna, for
Thank you
coming
for
on
having
Talking
me.
Tech.
Thank you for Abuja.
And to our listeners, thank you for listening. Until as INEC is collating the results, let's keep our calm. No matter what happens, let's keep our calm. If the result does not favor you, the law has given room for candidates to take matters to court. So let's not take laws in our hands. Thank you. Until I come your way next week, Tuesday, have a fantastic week.
Bye for now.
We actually have 4 more minutes.